Now consider the statement: South Africa's advertising industry is a colonial enclave where racial polarization is rife and the best profits are being creamed by a handful of foreign-owned advertising companies. That tough-talking statement set the tone for an in-depth discussion with three industry players who've taken up the fight.
The problem with our industry is that it's dominated by four media groups, international media groups, WPP, IPG, Omnicom and Publicis. Basically what they've done is they own all the multinational agencies present in South Africa currently. But the issue is clients are not aware of that, or many clients are. Because every time you probe, you realize that people think that because of BEE, and that agencies have got black MDs and black CEOs, everything is fine. But once you look at the ownership structure of these agencies, you realize that most of the money that goes into them leaves the shores.
There's almost seems to me a deliberate conspiracy to shunt black-owned agencies out of the equation as a consequence of these big four. I mean, surely it's not as bad as that.
I don't think it's a deliberate conspiracy. The bulk of the advertising agencies in the country fall within one of those four big conglomerates. But there are also a number of local agencies, both local because they're South African or local because they're black-owned, that are trying and are continually getting into the industry. And perhaps the bigger challenge is the opportunities that these guys are not getting in terms of trying to access the bigger business. And part of what we're doing from our side is trying to bring them to the fore, and at the same time make sure that we help in upskilling, helping out in some of the more technical skill level conversations to help them make sure that they are not just getting there, but when they get there, they are ready and able to do what needs to be done.
The flip side is the ad industry has signed a charter, a transformation charter.
The ad industry can sign a charter, but fundamentally the power lies in the client's hands. The challenge is to get the client and the businesses to support. And that, for me, you can write the charter out there, but fundamentally your agencies, your big agencies, they are competitors.
I want to try and get my head around what we're talking about when it comes to transformation. Are we talking about the output, the work, the tonality, the understanding of the market, or is it simply, as we've alluded to, the way in which the agencies themselves are structured?
If you go back to the days of, say, Herd Boys, which used to be an amazing black agency that was started in the early 90s. They did very well. At the time, the pitch was, listen, we understand the black market, therefore give us business. Then multinationals suddenly realized, okay, these guys understand the market. When they pitch to client, they get the business. So what do? They started employing black talent to go inside multinational agencies. Therefore, that USP left. Now everyone has that. So we can't say multinationals do not understand the market because they've got the people who can. The transformation now that has to take place has to be based on ownership. In the past, black people were denied access into certain markets, education played its role, and ultimately what happened is that you found at some point in our industry we had black people being allowed to enter the market but without the relevant experience. Some of us have been in the industry for about 19, 20 years, so we can't still talk about being upskilled. I will not be upskilled because I know what I'm talking about. I used to be at TBWA, creative director there, won awards there, locally and internationally, judge juries. I've done all those things, so I don't need to be upskilled. The minute I left TBWA, after winning all those awards, when I started pitching to clients, the thing that I had at TBWA, I lost for some reason, because now suddenly I was not good enough. Clients didn't trust me because of whatever reason. If you look at the charter can only go so far. What they'll say is 28.6%, they're pushing it to 40%. A multinational agency can only transform to a certain point.
What, in your opinion, then, Kaibe, is the next level of transformation, if leading on from that argument? What's the next step?
Transformation has to be about both things. It can't just be about ownership. It's also got to be about the delivery of work. Part of the delivery of work is being able to get a seat at the table, to be able to deliver and earn that seat at the table. You need to have certain resources. You need to be able to deliver a certain amount of work at a certain quality that the client will not compromise. The client doesn't care who's delivering it.
Is it your contention that sometimes there is a deficiency in that regard?
My contention is that sometimes the door is not even opened to the agencies because there's a perception that there's a deficiency, maybe because of the way that the agencies presented.
Okay,
themselves.
Carlo, you own an agency. How do you correct that proficiency
Efficiency
deficit?
problem.
Yeah.
We both come from the big agencies. I'm ex-Jupiter Drawing Room. I don't even know if they noticed us back then. But when we were at the white agencies or white-owned agencies, multinationals back then, I think we were called the blue-eyed boys. We were winning awards, winning big clients. We were the preferred creative directors on certain accounts. The minute we walked out and started our own agencies, guess what? You're not the blue-eyed boy anymore. You have a deficiency problem. You have a lack of skill. There is a...
Hang on, Carlo, no brand is going to take a chance on a small startup agency.
Definitely
Doesn't
not.
matter what the colour of the person is who's running it.
Definitely not. That's
Isn't that a flaw in your argument?
Not really. If you look at it, there are different divisions and different disciplines within most brands. You have below the line, you have digital, you have PR, you have mass market, PR promotions, presence branding, and we are specialists in some of those disciplines. So the argument actually falls flat on its face, because if you look at most multinationals, they do actually source out some of their specialized skills. Why don't these multinationals or local big blue chip clients support direct, locally owned agencies?
So answer the question yourself. What do you need to do in order to change the mind of a marketing director? Taelo, do you want to pick it up? Yeah.
You know, when the whole affirmative action and BE thing started, people were put in positions they couldn't handle. People were given accounts they couldn't handle. That's a fact. But things have changed. People are now qualified. People are now experienced. And I think we need to have a different argument now and a different discussion and say, how many strides have we made? How far have we gone? And clients, like what Carlo's saying, clients do need to account now and say, okay, in the past you could say these guys are not qualified, but now you can't do that anymore. Look, I think ultimately we have to be accountable in South Africa and understand that there is a problem. The Constitution is trying to address it. All these charters are trying to address it. Everyone's trying to. So we can't just be cold about it and say, listen, I've got a business, I want to run it efficiently, X, Y, and Z, therefore I will not give anybody a chance beyond a certain point. I think people, and we're not asking for handouts. We're not saying be charitable. We're not saying that. What we're saying is we're good at what we do. So I don't suddenly lose my abilities to handle a brand just because I've walked away from a multinational. That doesn't make any sense.
But gentlemen, to all of you, you have a bona fide organization called the ACA that is supposed to be taking up the cudgels on your behalf. Is it working? With the understanding that we will get the ACA to give any right of reply to whatever you might have to say.
I would not for a second say that the ACA is failing, but it's a journey. And the fact that you are on the journey doesn't mean that you've reached your destination. So are we 20% of the way there? Who knows? But we are definitely moving. And we're moving in the right direction. I think part of the challenge is that everybody needs to be moving in the right direction, perhaps simultaneously.
Carlo, do you have a similar view, or are you perhaps a little more strident in your interpretation?
I'm going to try to be very diplomatic around this subject. I think the ACA is making some strides. We're looking at their board that just changed recently. I think it's not transforming as fast as it should be. I look at, if you look at black-owned agencies represented on the board, black-owned agencies, there's not one. There's only one black person from an independent agency that's represented. So most of them are white owners, white-owned agencies with some black representation, and white-owned agencies, as in the multinationals, and some independent agencies with white people represented on the board. But there are none like myself, where we have, and Taelo, where we are 100% owned, black-owned agencies represented on that board. So again,
have you made an effort to shoulder your way in?
Not as yet, because
they might come back and say, our door is open, guys.
And we'll take them on that challenge. We will. But the challenge is out there for them to also try and approach us, because they know of us. We were members of them and we weren't very happy, and then we resigned from it. Basically, Jeremy, what we're saying is we are challenging South African businesses, South African organizations, whether it be private and public, to support and invest, or either invest as well. Because you look at the situation where black investment agencies or white investment agencies, let's call it Yardstick maybe, they don't invest in black-owned talent. Black investors go and they invest in white talent. Now that for me is a major issue, because guys are not looking. the door's not even open to us.
All right, I'm going to take those as your closing remarks. Taelo, I'm going to give you a moment or two just to close up here. What's the challenge then that you would like to lay down as a black creative director?
Ultimately, we formed an organization called AppCop, the Association of Black Comms Practitioners. So far, we've been able to lobby government. All right. In fact, last year we had a meeting with Kaibe, the Minister of Public Enterprises, and he made an undertaking that, because they don't know the structure of our industry. After he saw the presentation, he said, listen, we're willing to support black agencies within the advertising industry.
Government's always supported black-owned agencies.
Yes,
you want a bigger commitment,
of course
surely.
we do. As long as there's no pressure upon the industry to transform. And the pressure can't just be from the multinationals themselves. As in the ACA, when you look at it, before I wrote those articles, the chairperson was from a multinational. In fact, about 90% of the board was made up of multinational agencies. After those articles, they've changed it now. So there's pressure, so that they're beginning to change. But they can only go so far. So what we need is we need pressure from all ends, not only from ourselves, even clients themselves, right? To say, listen, guys, we need to do something, we need to transform.
The challenge then has been laid down. Do you believe that there is a willingness for the brands, the marketing directors, and even the agencies themselves to actually take up that challenge? Or do you think the status quo is likely to prevail?
The corporates, the brands, the marketing directors, the big clients are absolutely 100% aligned to the concept as well as the practice of transformation. What needs to be done and perhaps needs to be pushed is how that transformation can actually happen, as I said, not only from access to opportunities, but with a commensurate level of commitment from the agencies themselves to say, okay, we are also going to make sure that when we step into the room to be given those opportunities, we're ready. We don't want to be given handouts, as the guy said. We don't want to feel like somebody's doing us a favor. We want to be able to show that we are standing up and we are able to do this thing. But ultimately, everybody needs to be on the same page that says, we're going to give the opportunity and you're going to show us that you are ready to take up that opportunity.
Right, gentlemen, you've sown the seed for what I think is going to be a very interesting debate going forward on this program. Thank you all for joining me today. Well, tough and to the point, you'll agree. We'll continue the discussion and invite some of the bigger global agencies to respond. And you can let us know about the issue on our Facebook page on this address.
News that moves. enca.com.